Now the next cybersecurity best practices is third-party risk management. Assess the cybersecurity risks posed by third-party vendors and service providers. Now the question arises, who are the third-party vendors or service providers? We understand the same with the help of examples. First is cloud service providers. In this digital world, if we keep all of our data stored within our computer systems at a particular place, it may be possible that there may be some flood or fire, or the device containing our data may be spilled over by some liquid, or there may be some accidental fallen from our hand of that storage device, which may result into damage to our data or deletion of our data. So for that purpose, as you already know, there are cloud service providers such as Amazon Web Service. Google also provides cloud service facility, Google Cloud Platforms. Then Microsoft Azure also provides the facility of cloud service. So we as an individual or as an organization may be making use of these cloud service providers. Next is outsourced service providers. Outsourced IT service providers such as IBM, which provide 24/7 IT support service. Then there are payment processors. If we are having online presence, then it may be possible that we have contacted PayPal or some other organization for collection of money on our behalf. Then there are consulting firms such as Deloitte, EY, etc., which provide advisory services including risk assessment, etc. Then there are marketing agencies who make advertisements or do marketing campaigns on behalf of the companies. They need access to the company's customer data. So all these are examples of third-party vendors or service providers. There may be many more. We are here giving examples of few. So all these companies will be having some sort of access to the data of your clients or other persons. Now the question arises, third-party vendors can pose significant risks to organization. How they pose risk? Third-party vendors are separate, we are separate. How they pose risks? First is data breaches. When these third-party vendors such as cloud service providers or payment processors are storing the personal information or the financial information of our clients on our behalf, they are storing the information or processing the information on our behalf. They are naturally the target. They means the third party vendors and service providers are naturally on the radar of cyber attacks because they are storing the sensitive or financial information of a large number of millions of customers of the different organizations. So they are on the radar of hackers or cyber attacks if there is a cyber attack on third party vendor and the cyber attackers get access to the get unauthorized access to the or sensitive data or personal information or financial information of the clients of an organization, it will result into the financial loss, reputation damage of that organization, in respect of which the data has been assessed or unauthorizedly assessed or leaked by the hackers. Data breach may be the result of poor cybersecurity practices on the part of the third party vendor or service providers. Next is compliance violations. When we are talking about cybersecurity, two important rules which pertain to data protection are GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation of European Union, and HIPAA, US, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. These two acts are or regulations are very important which relate to the protection of data. In this case, it pertains to the protection of data of European citizens, and here it pertains to the protection of data of US citizens, HIPAA. So, some organizations are required to comply with regulations which may be enforced in a particular country. Some countries may be required to follow GDPR rules, some may be required to follow HIPAA rules and regulations. So, if there is violation on the part of a third party vendor, suppose an organization is a hospital and it is dealing with a health insurance claim. Suppose there is an insurance company and it is having or dealing with the insurance claim, and that insurance company has further given its processing to some other person to process the claim, authority to process the claim. And if that breach occurs on that part, on the other person who is processing the claim, which in India is called third party administrators, who process the claim on behalf of insurance company. So that is a third party vendor or third party person who is processing the claim on behalf of insurance company. So if there is a breach on that level or at the level of third party vendor, if in case of if this information of the insurance company is stored in, say, Google Cloud platform, and if there is a cyber attack on Google Cloud platform and there is violation of GDPR or HIPAA rules, then the main organization, that is the insurance company, may be held liable by the appropriate authority by imposing fines or penalties, and even imprisonment. Some rules may provide for the same. Then the other is supply chain vulnerabilities, supply chain weaknesses. It may be possible that here we are talking about third party vendors and suppliers, but it may be also possible that suppose a payment processor is dependent on some other company for IT support. That is, it is also third party vendor is also making use of some the services of some other person or other company, that is fourth party vendor. And if the third party vendor is making use of the services of other vendors, that is the fourth party vendors, and if there is any violation or breach on the part of fourth party vendor, it can have cascading effects on the main organization. Suppose if it is a ABC bank, if it is making use of cloud service provider, say of AWS, and this AWS is making use of, this is the third party vendor, and if AWS is making use of, say, some other service, say PayPal, here PayPal will be fourth party vendor. So if there is a cyber attack on this, it will have adverse effect on the ABC reputation of the ABC bank, because the financial data of ABC bank will be ultimately leaked in public or will be hacked by the hackers. So in this way, third party vendors also pose significant cybersecurity risks to an organizations. The level of risk posed by third party vendors depends on various factors. We will now discuss these factors. First is data sensitivity. If the data handled by a third party vendor is sensitive or very confidential, then the risk posed by that third party vendor is naturally higher. If the third party vendor is dealing with, say, payment information, that is the financial information, credit card, debit card information, which is done by the payment aggregators, PayPal, etc., or if the third party vendor is dealing with, say, health records on behalf of, say, insurance company, then also the level of risk posed by third party vendor is higher. However, if the information is less sensitive, the risk posed by third party vendor is less. Next is vendor geographic location. There are countries in the world who have weak cybersecurity laws. In some other countries, cybersecurity laws are very strict. In those countries where the cybersecurity laws are weak, such as Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Tajikistan, Myanmar, etc., if the vendor is located in those countries where cybersecurity laws are weak, the vendors located in those, the third party vendors or service providers located in those countries pose higher risk. Next is regulatory compliance. Companies or the third party vendors which work in some particular industries may have to follow strict guidelines with regard to data protection. For example, if the third party vendor is, say, dealing with financial information of the clients, or if the healthcare provider is dealing with healthcare, then it may have to comply with, say, GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation of European Union, or HIPAA in case of US. So if the third party vendor is working in regulated industries such as finance, healthcare, then it will also have to comply with some particular rules and regulations. So such type of third party vendors also pose etc risk. Next is vendor cybersecurity practices. If the vendor is following good, robust cybersecurity practices, it is providing proper training to the employees from time to time, it is having review of its policy and guidelines from time to time, if it is having proper compliance audit whether the employees of the third party vendors are following proper rules and regulations, complying with regulations, and if the third party vendor is having proper incident response plan, then it poses less risk. However, if the third party vendor is following weak cybersecurity practices, is having weak cybersecurity practices, it poses higher risk. Next is vendor access to organizational system. If the vendor is having more access to organizational system or data, such as in the case of cloud service providers, lot of data of the organization, some organizations may be stored in Google, may be stored in cloud service providers, or in the case of payment processor such as PayPal, financial information of large number of millions of clients may be stored in the payment with the payment processor. So such type of vendors who have more access to the organizational systems or data, such as if a company is utilizing the support of some IT company with respect to maintain its IT infrastructure, then such type of vendors who have more access to the organizational systems and data are pose much higher risk. The vendors with restricted access to the organizational system are prone to less cyber attacks and pose less risk. Next is vendors history of breaches. If the vendor has a history of cybersecurity breaches or cyber attacks in the past, off and on, then it poses a higher risk. Then is vendors financial health. If a vendor is financially weak, then naturally it will not have enough funds to be utilized, to be incurred to adopt various or robust cybersecurity best practices, such as having a proper incident response plan, to incur expenditure on using hardware and software firewalls, or making use of latest cybersecurity tools. It will not have the funds, so it will naturally pose a much higher risk ultimately for the primary organization. Establish clear cybersecurity standards and expectations for third party vendors and service providers. Vendors should be required to comply with relevant regulations. It must be made clear to the vendors that they have to comply with relevant regulation, such as GDPR if it is applicable to them, or HIPAA, or such like other regulations may be there with regard to the protection of data. Next is the vendors should be required to implement strong access controls. It should be made clear to the third party vendors that only authorized personnel should have access to the sensitive information, and all the employees of the third party vendor should make use of multi-factor authentication, and the principle of least privilege principle should be followed. What it means? Least principal privilege means the such type of privilege should be granted to the employee to have access to the data on computer system which is required just for the completion of his duty. In other words, we can say that if any person is dealing with the job of say clerical person, then that person should have access only to the data which it requires for the performance of his duties. Next, regular security assessment and audit. It should be made clear to them, to the third party vendor, that third party vendor should have regular security assessment and compliance audit at regular intervals to find out if there are any weaknesses in the working or the security system of the third party vendor. Then the third party vendor should have a proper incident response plan so that in the event of any a security incident, proper steps can be taken and the damage is minimum, and there must also be guidance with regard to how and when the matter should be escalated or forwarded or informed to the main organization, and how the collaboration should happen between the organization and third party vendor in case of a security incident. Next is the third party vendor should also be made clear how much data encryption is required. That is, he should be made clear that there should be proper data encryption in respect of the data which is in at rest and in transit, preferably in respect of sensitive and confidential data. If the organization has given access to sensitive data or confidential data to a third party vendor, then the third party vendor is required to follow proper data encryption of data. Next is training and awareness of employees. That is, a third party vendor is required to conduct training and awareness programs of the employees at regular intervals so that they can properly understand the best practices which are to be adopted in respect of the cybersecurity, and also they are required to understand the policies and guidelines of the main organization on behalf of which the third party vendor is acting. Next is include specific cybersecurity requirements in contracts with vendors to ensure that they adhere to your standards. It is not that what you want from the third party vendor should be told to them verbally. It will not work any purpose. It will not serve any purpose. If you an organization or as an individual tell to the third party vendor that these are the expectations from you with regard to the cybersecurity measures, it will not serve any purpose. You have to put all the expectations or the details in writing when you enter into a contract with third party vendor, or there is a service level agreement with the third party vendor. You have to put every point in writing. When you put everything in writing, it naturally puts a psychological pressure on the third party vendor, and he will be psychologically as well as he will be legally bound to obey to follow the various expectations or the guidelines as prescribed in the written agreement. Regularly review and assess the security measures of your vendors to ensure they remain compliant. It is not that you have put it in all the things in writing and you become complacent. No, you as an organization, as the main organization, are required to review and assess whether the vendor, third party vendor, is actually following the cybersecurity measures, or he has just given in writing and is actually not following the cybersecurity rules and regulations or what is expected from him. You are to review and assess. If he is not following the rules, you may think of terminating the agreement with him, or you may hire some other third party vendor as you deem fit and as the circumstances desire. Thanks for watching. If you like our course, please spare some time to give a star rating to our course.